Mississippi is the only place in the United States where we ever had a problem. We had a problem in Copenhagen, but we handled that.
Oh, did we handle it? Oh, Lord.
It was Portia, Estelle, and me walking down the street looking for a Chinese restaurant. So we see, yeah, there's one. It said Hong Kong. Of course we're going to think this is the Chinese restaurant. The stairs went down like that. So
Go down the stairs.
I go to check. I look in, it's a bar. There's a lady, a female bartender. I said, do you serve food here? No. So I come back out and we continue walking. And we don't see a Chinese restaurant, so we turn around and we're walking back. As we pass the Hong Kong, this guy opens the door, sticks his head out and says, nigga, bitches.
He did. Well, Verna had to show him what a nigga bitch was like, because she ran back downstairs and put a cigarette out in his face. We're Christians, but we don't take no stuff.
Yeah, we're going to do a song that Elvis heard and decided that he'd like us to do his background for him. That was in 1969. And we have a new version of it. It's called Sweet Inspiration 2004. I need your sweet inspiration. I need you here on my mind every hour of the day. Without your sweet inspiration, the lonely hours of the night just don't go my way. A woman in love needs sweet inspiration. And honey, that's all I ask, you know, that's all I ask from you. I gotta have your sweet inspiration. You know there just ain't no telling what a satisfied woman might do. When you call me baby, yeah, such a sweet inspiration. But when you call me darling, sets my heart to skating. And when I'm out in the rain, baby, and in a bad situation, God just reaches back in my mind, and there's a sweet inspiration. Oh, what a power! Yeah, I'm telling you that I got the power of God every hour of the day. And I need your sweet inspiration. Yeah. To go on living, to keep on giving this way. I need your sweet inspiration. our agent calls us and tells us about it, and, you know, we go like, Elvis Presley, you know? I mean, why? I mean, our sounds are so different. And then we got all this, they must have sent 200 albums for us to learn Elvis's material. We looked at that stuff and said, is he kidding? No. We're background singers. We can pick that up like that. So we were totally unprepared. But I later learned that we were not Elvis's first choice anyway. A group called the Blossoms, who were background singers for Tom Jones, he asked them first, because he had worked with them, because they're in some of his movies, you know, they were in his '68 special, that's the Blossoms. And they were busy with Tom Jones.
I said, no way. What in the name of God are we going to sing with Elvis? He's a Blue Suede Sugar, and we're singing, I need, you know, it's a whole different thing, you know.
We didn't know what we could do for Elvis. But Elvis had something in mind. It was magical when it happened. But when we went to Vegas, came to Vegas, when we saw what he wanted to do, you know, having a flavor of gospel in our sound, and the other group that he was using, they were males, but they were a gospel group. And then he had these rock and roll musicians, and then in back of that he had a whole orchestra. Then we could figure out what he was doing. But he had this whole thing in mind from the start, but we just weren't aware. But the moment he walked into that first rehearsal, I mean, if we thought, what are we gonna do with Elvis? Then we thought, there's a lot I can do with him. He was just gorgeous. He was absolutely gorgeous. And he was just a gentleman. He just walked over and gave us a kiss like he knew us, you know. It was just wonderful, wonderful. You know, I'd heard stuff like Hound Dog, and you know, I hadn't heard all of his music, and I still haven't seen his movies. But I didn't know what an incredible voice he had, because I had heard stuff that was silly, like Hound Dog, you know. You ain't nothing but that. What does that mean, you know? And I had heard Love Me Tender, but I wasn't that impressed. You know, he's a good singer and he moves great. But when I actually heard him live singing, even at that first rehearsal, I was blown away. And then I started listening to Elvis, and then I could see what all the hoopla was about.
They relive the name of the sweet inspirations. I got a sweet inspiration. I need you here on my relax every hour of the day. Without your sweet inspiration, the lonely hours of the night just don't go my way. Forgetting love needs sweet inspiration. And you know that's alright, you know that's alright. Well, you and your sweet inspiration. The lonely hours of the night just don't go my way. Forgetting love needs sweet inspiration. And you know that's alright, you know that's alright. Well, you and your sweet inspiration. Yeah, we know that just ain't no tell satisfies the whole mind too. Yeah, we know that just ain't no tell satisfies the whole mind too. Yeah, we know that just ain't no tell satisfies the whole mind too. All right.
If we had dates set aside for the Sweet Inspirations, and we got the call that Elvis needed us. We couldn't make our own dates, you know.
Nothing was a definite. You know, you're gonna definitely work. You're gonna definitely do this. There was nothing. But the Elvis show was a definite. We knew that whenever he worked, we would work. We knew that we were coming to Vegas twice a year, and whatever shows he did, wherever, we knew that we would be a part of it.
And we were treated with such care with the Elvis people, and we didn't have to fend for ourselves. Like if we went on the road to Swing Inspirations, we had to drive to where we were getting, or fly, whatever, and perform. And sometimes not even get paid because the promoter, once the promoter pulled the gun on me, I went to get the money. I go into his office and say, I'm here to collect our money. We had already done the show. And he just took his jacket aside to show me his gun and said, you don't get no money. Okay, I'll see ya. What am I gonna do, fight with this guy? It's not that our career was winding down. It was just that, have you ever heard of the Chitlin Circuit? Okay. Well, we're R&B. So we're not playing places like the Copacabana. And I mean, we're playing like Gus's Roadstop or the Howard Theater, or places like that. And you're a headliner, but sometimes being a headliner isn't as lucrative as being a background singer, you know? And Elvis paid us very well. And he allowed us to, we even brought our own band with us. And we opened the show. We were on stage for 22 minutes. And we made enough money to fly all of us out there, give us a great pay our band, buy new outfits, have our charts done. You know, so he paid, I mean, he was very generous. Elvis, we went to work for Elvis Presley for 5 weeks, and it was wonderful. He was wonderful. I loved him. He was such a gentleman and all that to me, you know.
Tell me about that.
Well, when they first called, the girl said, Elvis Presley, oh my God, what are we going to do? I said, hey, it's a gig and it's a good one.
Uh-huh.
So we went, and when we got there, it was nothing like what we might have thought, you know, because it was just wonderful. Well, it was really wonderful. He was into gospel. So every once in a while when we finished rehearsing with him, we just sing gospel, all of us, you know. And we just had a good time. He would get good money and good pay and good, it was nice atmosphere, you know, and we didn't go around with him as his friends. We worked for him. So we saw him at work or at rehearsals. So I don't know what he did in between, nor did I care. You know, I just doing what I was supposed to do, and we were. But no, we haven't been criticized. We've been more criticized for singing with the real Elvis. You know, because the black community obviously felt that we shouldn't be doing it. So Ebony Magazine, in fact, called us and wanted to know, we got a lot, why are you singing with Elvis Presley? You know, why not? and sometimes we get shot back with, well, you know what he said about black people. Yeah, I heard that story too. But I also heard the one he said about Mexican people. It's the same story. The one he said about the story is, Elvis Presley said, all a black person, I'm using that, can do for me is shine my shoes. Mexicans have the story. All a Mexican can do for me is shine my shoes. That's also attributed to Elvis. Yeah, that's a story, that's a rumor made up by some rock and roll singer who wanted to be where Elvis was, I suppose. Because as far as I'm concerned, Elvis treated us royally. And if he said it, I don't care, because there's things that I've said I don't want anybody repeating. But I don't believe that he would make a statement like that. Especially No, and the way he treated me like a princess. Now, I loved him, and I knew he loved me, you know? You know, you just know it. But we got over that flack. Ebony Magazine did an article where they researched the statement that Elvis had made some racial slur. And they researched it. They had us there in Chicago do an interview to tell how Elvis treated us. And I mean, they researched it for years, talking to different people, black, white, you know. And they finally came out with a statement recently, you know, not more than 5 years ago, that they had researched this particular theory, and they had found that there was no truth to the thought that Elvis had made that racial slur. So people said he was prejudiced. I said, well, I never felt his prejudice. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he was prejudiced, you know.
He treated everyone the same.
Yeah. He had black singers and white singers. He's had the Imperials, who was a men's group, very popular men's group. And we were the girls' group, the Spin Expression, so.
I think people have, you know, certain stereotypes about him.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because he was a wonderful person, so good-looking, you just didn't want to even look nowhere else. He was so handsome, but he was just as nice, fun. You know, he cracked jokes and all that kind of crap, and you'd be singing, and he'd make you laugh and whatnot. So we had a good time. We had a good run with him. When we first decided to take the gig with Elvis, we had no idea that there would be any racial flack regarding it. Our first racial encounter was when we went to Texas. Elvis was told by his people that, well, you can leave the black girls home. You don't have to bring them. So Elvis wasn't going to do the Astrodome unless his girls could be with him. And he demanded that we be given the star treatment. We had to be in our convertible where everybody could see us, and our little blonde could drive us. And that was his statement. You don't like it? Deal with it, or I'm not going to be there. And I thought that was very big of him.
Where's Gigi? How can you?
Gigi's no longer with us.
You gotta be good.
No, he had to quit. See what happened? Gigi was married and had a baby, an infant baby, and he had a little boy back in Memphis. So he had to leave the little boy in Memphis because his wife's parents were keeping the little boy, and they wouldn't let him take him out of town. So they had one child, I think, in California, one back there, and they were traveling back and forth, and it was a little too much for him. So they.
But it is his child. Can you take his child away from him? Take his child?
It's not really his child. It was his wife's child by a previous marriage.
And she couldn't take him?
But she wouldn't take him away from him. It was just a family thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd lose him because he.
I know you hate to go, too.
Yeah.
He can't come out never no more? He just quit.
Just quit.
What was that other fellow's name? Bitsy.
Bitsy.
Was it Bitsy?
That's the colonel.
The guy works for the colonel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he'll probably be out here.
He wasn't here last time.
Bitsy and the guy right there with the striped shirt took Gigi's place.
We were walking down to the casino and saw a fella. I flipped.
Flip.
He just walked right on off.
He did do that. Now.
Yes, he did.
He was sick of us because we laughed. Flip who?
Is that what you call it?
I don't know.
You make a mistake.
I think she made a mistake.
Well, it's funny because somebody last night called him Phil. Good night, Phil.
I made a mistake.
Flip. Now, she had the right name, man. Flip. You know.
No. Devil made her do it. Devil made it fall out
Oh, here he comes, man. Here he comes.
These corny jokes.
The devil, yeah. 2 hours and we'll country joke.
Because he came across as more of a brother you know, than a lover kind of thing. I mean, we had our little thing, you know, our little looks at each other, our little flirtation. But, you know, he was, you know how sometimes you want somebody as your friend, and if anything else goes on, they won't be your friend anymore. And if you're working with them, it's kind of hard too, especially if they're your boss, you know. And he, I mean, there were attempts by him for us to have more than a employee-employer relationship, but I always managed to get around.
How did you resist? How did you resist Elvis Presley?
Well, first of all, when I first started working with him, I had a boyfriend. His name was Gregory, and he was in our band. And so Elvis was very careful with me that he didn't step on our toes, because the band traveled with us, you know, so Elvis knew that was my boyfriend. But then when we broke up, Elvis and Jerry Schilling, who I later married, they both asked me out at the same time. Both of them wanted me to come to Palm Springs. So I didn't go at all because I was invited by both of them, so I couldn't go at all. But Jerry was the one that kept pursuing the relationship, and Elvis backed out.
Why did Elvis back down?
Because he knew that I wasn't really interested, you know, and he didn't have the time to pursue me like Jerry did. You know, he was busy pursuing everybody else. But I spent a lot of time with Elvis. I spent time at his house. He made sure that if I came to LA, I stayed with him at his house. And we had a beautiful relationship. I'm glad it didn't get any further than that, because it wouldn't have been the same kind of thing. I mean, I loved him, he loved me. We knew that, but we knew that anything else was not going to happen.
Good night, Elvis. You're tangled up in these.
I'm thinking the same thing. Oh, yeah.
Do it. Man, that's your big chance, huh?
Look, don't show them all.
John, how you doing? Thank you. That'll do.
Halloween costumes?
Hey, they groovy too.
All the biggies.
Who's out there?
Right.
Some big people.
They groovy.
The bars out there. Bars.
Hey. Charlie? Charlie? No, I'll stand up. Now I'm going to read it and sit on the son of a
He'll walk like that thing. Look like a big guy, you know, all the girls go to high and scream.
They might hit you in the face.
That's not Marty.
Myrna.
That's my cousin's.
You got this?
Is that the superimposed one? Yes, that's the one they superimposed on her. Lord have mercy.
I don't have my shoes on.
She stood the
They're standing
shoes.
They're standing behind.
That's so
the
great.
mic
I love
stand.
that picture. I had one of the car Elvis bought me. Well, this is it. The Eldorado, but that's
Elvis bought your car. And what was it? Tell us.
75 Eldorado. That's one view of it.
How did he come to buy you a car?
Because I wouldn't take a $30,000 ring he wanted to give me. I gave that back to him, so.
Elvis wanted to give you a $30,000 mink, and you said
No, ring. It was a ring.
Oh, ring.
I took it. I took it when he gave it to me, but I was riding with him on his plane, so I got on the plane. I gave it back to him, and he wasn't the type that you could give back a gift, but he took it back anyway. And the next night he threw it in the audience. And then 2 weeks later, he bought me the Eldorado.
And you graciously accepted
I
the
said,
Eldorado.
well, I don't know where he would throw this.
First of all, you could
He can't throw this, so I'll just take it.
I should do it now. When Jesus
Like being in movies?
Yes, don't you? Movies? Show your teeth when you say movies.
Have I been in a movie?
You sure are.
One you broke?
My dog has That's my old one, short. You tangle up and choke myself. I'm all right. That guy really this guy really designed this news. No, a guy named Bill Ballou does all my. He comes up with something different every time.
My favorite memory of Elvis was spending his 40th birthday with him. The guys that worked with him, the Memphis Mafia, as they call themselves, we all went to, I think it was Vail, Colorado, to ski, right? It was going to be his birthday, and he was going to spend it there because he kind of liked it up there. And all of a sudden, he decided he didn't want to be 40. So he didn't want anybody around him. So he called everybody and said, that's okay, don't come up to the house, because he was staying in the house, we were staying in condos. And so, you know, they figured since we don't have to babysit him tonight, we'll go out and do our other thing, because Elvis always liked to have people around. People thought that the guys around him were hangers-on, but they were there because Elvis wanted them there. And when he didn't want them there, he let them know. So the other guys, they found other things to do, and Jerry and I were just hanging around our condo. Got another call. I said, I changed my mind. He said, would you and Myrna come up? And at the time, Elvis was with Linda Thompson. I think Linda she didn't make a cake, but she made something that resembled a cake. And Elvis asked me, have you ever seen the movie Across 110th Street? And I made the mistake of saying no, but I hadn't seen it. Now, if you knew Elvis, you know that if he saw a movie that he liked, he could watch it 100 times, which meant that he knew all the dialogue. So we spent his birthday with him acting out all the parts with all the dialogue to Across 110th Street. So I never had the need to go watch the movie because I know that movie. He told me the whole movie. But we had a blast. I mean, he was really funny that night, you know. You make me feel brand new. Yeah, that feels so much better.
The other ones just seem to never catch on the right accents. Da, 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 da. Okay. You make me feel brand new. Ooh, baby. You make me feel brand new. Ooh. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Straight ahead. You have all that.
Good one for the CD.
So Estelle should do the first
Yeah.
run, then you do
Yeah.
the second.
Yeah, because
that makes
it's
much more,
that.
makes much more sense.
Okay.
Darling,
Real comfortable.
would you go down?
You make me feel brand new. Ooh, baby. You make me feel brand new. Our love, my love, I'll never find the words, my love, to tell you how I feel, my love. Mere words could not explain.
And Sylvia wasn't on the plane with us because at the time she lived in New Jersey. And so she was in a store buying shoes for the show when it came on the radio. But she didn't hear it. One of the salesmen heard it and said, "Don't you work with Elvis Presley?" And she said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you know, he just died." And she said, "Don't be playing." She was telling me, relaying the story to me. She said, I told him, "Don't you play with me like that," you know? She didn't believe it. And I got over the shock of it. But when I think about it, it's still like unreal. Because, you know, you don't expect people to. He was like, I know he was larger than life. But I'd seen Elvis sick so many times before. You know, I'd been to the hospital, visited him, you know, in the hospital, and I'd seen him overweight before, and most of the time when he started to work, he'd lose the weight. And just to think about him not being around, you know. There's some people that acted very insensitively to Elvis's death. I heard one comment. I mean, they were calling, some of his really good friends were saying, "That bastard had to go and die," you know? I guess they were in shock, too, but I heard some very harsh things from some people that had been around Elvis, and you would think that they cared very much for him, you know? But he was a meal ticket to a lot of people, and that's all. And that's very unfortunate.
What did I learn from Elvis? What did I learn from Elvis? That everybody can get together, you know, because even out of all the people we worked with Elvis, the whole group, we all became like a family. And there was no bickering, no fight. It doesn't have to be that way.
One thing I really am glad I learned from him is no matter how afraid you are before you walk on that stage, once you get out there, you're there to entertain and for people to enjoy you, because he was as nervous as I am before I go on. You know, he'd be just shaking like that. But as soon as he walked on that stage, there's, I mean, and saw those flashes, I mean, even if it was a place where you couldn't use flashes, and saw the audience expecting from him, then he gave, you know.
When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I'd rather know I'm on your side. Oh, time gets rough, yeah, and friends just can't be found like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the the street. When evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, when times are rough and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. Sail on, silver girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on the way. See how they shine. Oh, if you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your
Elvis was an angel. Yeah, that's how.